Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Christina and I'm really excited to share with you what I've been working on the last few months. If any of you follow me on social media, you'll notice I've been doing a little bit more World War II. And what happened was a friend let me borrow a wonderful original exercise suit that was worn by the Women's Army Corps to do their calisthenics in the morning. And it comes with these cute little shorts they call bloomers. But this one here, this is the original. And the last few months, I've been making a pattern based off of it. As you can see, about the only difference is the arms were really tight on the original. So I lowered the armhole a little bit so that, normal people can do their morning exercises in them. But yeah, here she is. I've made this pattern in every size now to test it out for you. And so today, I want to get a head start on some of the tutorials that I want to have out when I actually release the pattern, which hopefully is really soon. I've got all the pieces printed out. It will come as a printable pattern, and you can cut all the pieces out. I keep them hung up on this hanger like this. And there's kind of a neat way of cutting it out to make the best use of the fabric. So that's what I want to do today. So, all right, let's get started. Okay, looks like we've got two sleeves we're going to lay out, and then we're going to lay out the other things next to it. Looks like we have some facings, a pocket, and some belt loops. I think I might do it with this as a straight edge. I'll have a little extra room up here just in case. Let me just put my pattern weights down and cut. Alright, and we're ready to cut the second sleeve. You can see if I was really pressed for room, I could flip this over and cut it the other way. That would save us a little bit of room there. Alright, the sleeves are done. Great. Alright, after the sleeves, and then we have our facings for the bloomers, number pieces 11, 12. Since this fabric's striped, I'm just going to find a stripe to cut along and do that for the length of the piece. Oh, love pattern weights. And cut across the top. Alright, that's one. You need two of those. Right. Done with our loomis front facing. Great, let's cut the back. Okay, don't forget to do the little notches in here like I almost forgot. There. That one has two, and then for these I just take a mechanical pencil and poke all the way through, and that usually does it. This dot isn't going to show on the outside, so there you go, just like that. And we just need one each of the pocket and the loops, so let's cut those out. We got plenty of room. And make sure you get the little notches. You don't really need to worry about the dashes right now. Okay, now that I'm done cutting these pieces out, I'm just going to paper clip them together, because you always cut these pieces out together, so I just keep them stored like that. Alright, for the next section, if you're working with 3 yards of fabric, you can pretty much just fold whatever's left over crossways, which is different than how most patterns have you fold the fabric, but we need this to all be stripes going up and down. And the problem is if you're working from a big bolt of fabric like I am, you're not really sure how far to fold. So you can see piece number 1 goes from almost the bottom to the top. So I have that out here, and I'm going to fold as long as that is. But as you can see over here, we also need the belts and the yoke and the collar to fit. And I'm going to see which is longer. And to me like this piece is longer, so I'm not going to worry about these fitting. Although I think for the size large, these might actually be slightly longer, so do check that. And then I'm just going to measure. I'm just going to measure this, and then that's how far I'll fold my fabric over. All right, looks like a little more than 46. Okay, so if I fold it over 47 inches, we should be good. All right, so just to clarify, this distance will now be 47 inches. I'm making a small right now, so if you are making another size, go ahead and check that on your size. I've got this sleeve cut out here, so I found where the top of that is, and I'm going to measure 47 inches. So I can measure another 47 inches, or I can just fold it in half right here, and that spot will be good. Oh, this is a giant piece of fabric. Okay, I think I'm gonna pin along here and then go stand up and shake it out and get it even. All right, I've got my first piece laid out, and you can see it here. And you'll notice there's a large sleeve pattern cut out of the center, and that's because when you print the patterns, this one's nested inside, and there's also one nested in the back piece, and that's to save paper. It saves you a lot of paper to print it here and then cut it out, because you don't really need all the paper that would normally be printed in there. So a couple notes about this piece. Of course, cut it out, and then we're going to do our markings, and what I do is I take mechanical pencil and I just poke it in these holes really good, and that will give you a marking all the way through. Those are not going to show once you sew these tucks, so it's okay if that dot shows on both sides. And also the tucks are only 1/2 inch. You don't really need to draw that line in. That's just to let you know that's where you're going to sew. And then I also for these, since the fabric doesn't really have a right and a left or a wrong and a right side, I'll go ahead and I'll put a little safety pin there on both sides so that I know whichever one ends up being the left side, that's the one I'll put the pocket on. And then I also put safety pins on here to mark my buttonholes and my buttons for whichever side that ends up. I end up doing that first on. And then of course you have a little dot here. Don't forget that. That's where your collar is going to end. And of course your notches. And oh, a thing about the grain. So here's your grain line, straight up and down, and you want to make sure that that follows a stripe if you're using the striped fabric. And you'll see this is actually larger than the rest of the facing, because this has to come over to meet right here. So this won't be on a straight line. One of the nice things about the nested pattern piece is you can see right through it. And so here we can see this straight line, and you can just kind of line it up like that and have your pattern on the grain, just like that. There you are. All right, so I already checked and I know I'm going to have enough room for my other pieces, so I'm actually going to cut this out first before I place my other pieces on the fabric. I actually have a better idea. Why don't the side I mark with the pocket, why don't I make that the left side? Ah, brilliant. Right. I'm just going to put that through the top piece. Like that. There we go. And same for the buttonhole. Only one side mark. Okay, that's convenient. Okay, just make sure my little dots show all the way through. Yep, looks good. We've got piece number 2 laid out. So on a diagram, this piece is upside down, just like that. There's the top, and you'll notice that we have another nested piece here. The collar is cut out of this one to conserve paper. So there's actually these notches up here. I just wanted to explain. This notch is for everyone. And then these notches, that one's for small, that one's for medium, that one's for large. So actually where that needs to be moves a little depending on the size, so just cut the one out for your size. Probably drawing on the table a little bit underneath it. Okay, there, and then just make sure those went through both layers. Great. Okay, I wanted to explain this next section. We've cut out number 1, we've cut out number 2, and now it's time to make sure the rest of the pieces fit. So as you can see, we've got 9 and 10, and it's very important that when you do the belt piece, this is the only piece that's placed on the fold, and it's placed on the fold up at the top over there. So you want to make sure you don't cut that in half, that you do place that on the fold. And then we have some other funny little dashed lines in here. And what that is we need to make sure that these pieces are going to fit later. So we've got our waistbands. You can see they're the same width. And this is the size small, so they're fitting pretty easy. But if you're cutting out the size large, especially with the extra large bloomers, it's a little bit of a squeeze, even on this fabric that's 62 inches wide. It's a little bit of a squeeze, so you do want to make sure everything fits. And then these are going to fit nicely down there. So as you can see, we have plenty of room in this instance, but you may need to make sure that all your pieces fit. And then once you know those fit, you can just take them off. You're not going to cut them out. And just go ahead and cut out your bloomers and your belt. So to cut out the belt, I'm not actually going to cut it like this. I'm just going to cut length. And then I'm going to find a stripe to cut it on. So this looks good. We don't want to be, we only have 1/4 inch seam allowance on this, so we don't want too much of the selvage showing. That, and then this one looks good. Great. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut that line all the whole way, so I'll have a belt that's nice and right along the stripe. Okay, one end's cut out, and time to cut the other side. All right, and belt complete. We have the bloomer's front is going first, and I'm actually going to cut along this line because this is a straight bottom along the grain, so that will line up nicely like that. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll line it up right along the bottom. When you're cutting this out and going to mark your notches, you'll notice for the size small, you'll just see the S, but for the other sizes, you'll see the S, the M, and the L. So you're just going to mark the dot for your size, and the dot we're going to sew to. That can go all the way through. That shouldn't show in the end. And then the other thing is we have these little tucks up here, and there's notches that help you identify them. But I kind of like to put a little bit of a solid line on the solid one, just so I know that that's the solid one when we go to do the tucks. For the bloomer's back, again, I'm going to make sure that we're on the grain line. Actually, you can kind of see through this. You can see that it's on a line, so that's good. And then I wanted to take this opportunity to clarify a comment in my notes I'm going to make, is that if you are cutting out the very largest sizes, the large or the extra large bloomers, the waistbands aren't going to fit where I say to put them, but they should fit down here. Kind of going the opposite of the way the grain line is. But, oh, you can't see that. There you go. Kind of down below there. There should be room. That part of the ensemble doesn't really show at all. It's fine if it's going that way. Let's go ahead and get this all cut out and marked up. So I've got my piece cut out, got all my little notches done, and again I've got my little dot there. That's where I'm going to be stitching when I sew the facings and then the side down. And then the other thing we have instead, of tucks, we have darts this time. And this little dot, you can just mark all the way through. And if you sew slightly past it, it won't show. The notches at the top should show you where the dart is. I usually fold them together and then actually go in and draw like a line with a ruler as a guide for where to sew. So those notches and that dot should give you enough information to sew your dart. All right, we are done with step 2 of the cutting layout. Time to move on to step 3. So this is basically just showing this gray line is the piece that's left. Again, this is based on the largest size. So as you can see, we've got a little more left to work with. I'm going to go ahead and open that out so it looks like this piece, and we'll get our pieces laid on it. This is a really long piece, so some of them are off camera there. And I also noticed this could be confusing if you're watching it on the video without having the pattern, but this is a number that's helping when you actually assemble the pattern pieces. That's not the piece itself. The piece number itself is going to be right here. Dress yoke, just like that. Now, because I'm cutting this dress out of a bolt and I'm making several dresses, I'm actually going to conserve fabric and do this layout instead. So you do not have to do the layout that I say. I definitely recommend save fabric anytime you can, because on the last bolt, I was very good about saving fabric, and I pretty much squeezed an extra dress out of the fabric that I bought. So yes, conserve fabric when possible. All right, color's done. You probably noticed I don't use pins or anything. I just use fabric weights. It's so much easier, and also when you're working with printer paper, it's kind of thick, so it's a lot easier if you just weigh it down and then cut around it like that. And then the yoke has lots of notches on it. Those are all important. And then this little circle here, I know I say to match the circles. I would be a little bit careful about that, because if you draw a big circle on there and then accidentally make this the outside, it probably will show. So maybe just do like a little dash line right there, or a circle, maybe a little bit more in the seam allowance, but that is the point that you are going to want to match to the sleeve later. All right, I'm going to cut the waistbands the same way I did with the belt, and that is I'm going to cut along one of these little stripes and then up and around. So I'm going to cut it on a stripe and take the pieces off and then put them back on just to get the length and the width. And then another note about these, you don't really need to mark these. In the instructions it will say, you know, a ½ inch from the edge where you've sewn it. And then of course it's just going to be in the middle of the waistband. So, and same with these, you don't really need to mark those. It will be obvious where to put those when you're sewing. There we go. Actually, I think we're done. I think those are the last ones. Yay! So I just wanted to show you real quick. I've been showing you this, but I am going to have actual written instructions in the pattern. So that will explain what's going on. So you don't have to completely rely on the video, but this should be part 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 to tell you how to do all the steps. So when I'm all done, I like to organize my pattern pieces by hanging them up, but I'm going to, well, I already paper clip these ones together. Even though some are dress pieces and some are bloomers pieces, they always get cut out together. So I just pin those together. And I'm going to pin these together because they get cut out together too. Just keeps them organized for me. Like that. That didn't work. Okay, I've got the belt and the bloomer bottoms clipped together. And now the fun part. I've got a hanger with some large clips on it, and I'm going to try to do this. Let's see if it works. Not so bad. And look at that. Voila. There you go. And that all hangs up nicely in the closet and stays pretty flat, which makes it a lot easier to then cut out another one. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day.